Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with author, operations management expert, and martial arts enthusiast, Burke. He has over 30 years of experience in operations management and a deep background in martial arts. Also, he has dedicated his life to mentoring and inspiring others. He embodies the core principles of accountability, discipline, and excellence, values that have guided him in both the boardroom and the dojo. Gene is not just a leader, but also a storyteller, sharing his wisdom through three impactful books: The Iron Road, Striking Success, and The Dojo of the Mind. His roots hail from Brooklyn, and he's got quite a story. Enjoy. Before we get into your life and operations management, martial arts, being an author, all of these interesting things that make up who you are, I want to know, first and foremost, we're in a brand new year. We survived this pandemic. There was a lot of shifting that happened during that time period. How did you ultimately survive that pandemic period, and how many ripples from that time have affected the way that you do business now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in the industry that I was in, actually, it was kind of odd for me. My daily process in terms of having to go to work never changed. In other words, I never had to work remotely. I still had to, my day was almost normal, but the world around our processes changed. So, there was a lot more, Zoom calls and things like that. And, the ripple effect from that was it shows us as a society how quickly things can change. And some, whether it's individuals or whether it's businesses, can flex to such, because that was really some dramatic changes. And, we're still feeling the ripple effects from it today, with anxiety and depression and, just a lot of things that have still, I think, are still reverberating in the society and around the world. I think it's had some long standing effects. And it shows both individually and, from a business standpoint, how you're able to adapt, and can you adapt, and what tools do you need to adapt to continue to be successful.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis. I want to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students. It's career day. All right. One of the kids in the back of the room is totally curious and is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Yeah, so I'm an operations manager by trade. So I run multiple departments within a company, and my day really goes into, I come into the day, and first thing in the morning I check to see if there are any fires I have to put out, not literal fires, but if there are operational fires that I have to put out. And then typically interacting with staff throughout the day, checking in on. I have a number of managers and supervisors who report to me. So we check in with each other throughout the day, check in with staff, check in with customers, deal with customer issues. In my world, a lot of my daily process, a huge part of it actually, is communication. So it's just being involved, whether, face to face, on the phone, doing Zoom calls. That's pretty much the bulk of my day. And, and as I'm writing these books, I'm shifting a little, some of my focus now into developing different projects and, business models going forward outside of what I do normally.
So talk to me a little bit about what you wanted to be when you were that age. When you were in the third grade, what was your dream ideal life?
Wow, that's a great question. I'm trying to think back. That was in third grade. Honestly, I don't know if I had a specific goal in mind. I mean, I think, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and a lot of my family and friends were firemen and policemen. And, going back then, I was probably thinking along those lines. And then as I began to get older, actually, believe it or not, when I was in high school and then college and things, I had a great interest in how the mind works, and my goal was to become a psychologist. And then life happens, and your road, your path kind of changes, so that never materialized. But that's always been, I would say, longer term, that was probably my strong drive to do that.
So take me back to your childhood, and what were these foundational seeds that have allowed you to become a writer, an organizational expert, to get into martial arts? What were the moments, or what were the seeds that were cultivated that have evolved into who you are today?
Great question. So, like many kids, I was bullied a lot as a child. I was physically, especially when I was younger in grammar school and, middle school, I was very small for my age. And, I had some skin conditions that made me kind of stand out. So, I was bullied quite a bit. And, that created some challenges, and I had to navigate that emotionally and, things like that. But that also took me down a path where, you go into the mind, and obviously I didn't know about it at the time, but you think about the mind body connection. So, I was introduced to weightlifting probably in middle school, really early first year of high school, and I began to lift a lot. And at the same time, I began to have like kind of a growth spurt. So, uh, what I found was, which was wonderful, when I was weightlifting, I wasn't thinking about being bullied. I wasn't thinking about what was going to happen at school the next day. I wasn't, thinking about, just the challenges that come with that. And I began to gain confidence. And it's kind of funny, by junior year of high school, just because I grew a lot, I became very successful at weightlifting. The bullying stopped. So that actually created a sense of confidence in myself, and I began to be kind to myself. I think part of the challenge is especially when people are being bullied, and kind of the genesis. I really didn't think about writing books until you know relatively recently. I've been working on things for a long time, but publishing anything was something different. I think as a society and for individuals, let's say, for example, if someone's out there and they're being bullied and things like that, it can have devastating effects on them emotionally and psychologically and things like that. And I think it's really important that people are kind to themselves. There are listen, there are good people and there are some nasty people, and people who bully people typically have their own issues that they're dealing with, and you're just kind of a conduit for their outlet for what they're dealing with. So I think it's really important, and that's part of what I began to learn as I grew. And that's actually, when I went into the martial arts kind of later. And it wasn't for that reason. By then I was, I didn't have any confidence issues or things like that. There was a different reason why I went into the martial arts, but that continued the process. Being involved in something that's goal orientated and requires discipline and has a community around it that's very supportive. I mean, I think those things are very important for people, and that kind of grew into through years. I've been an operations manager for many years, and dealing with people on a daily basis, and learning to read the room and learning to read the person who's directly in front of you, I think is critical. And I think you learn that through just life experience and how you internalize things. So I know that was kind of a long answer. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's really the kind of path it took
Yeah, it
to where
certainly did.
to where I am today.
Yeah, no, it certainly did. So, on this path in life of overcoming and evolving into who you are today, who's been that bedrock, inspiration, or hero for you?
Well, that's a great question. My mom actually, I tell you, my mom she was actually a New York City police officer back in the 40s. So she was actually in the second class of women police officers. Like they used to have like police maidens, and she was actually one of the first classes of police women officers. And she was actually, if you ever heard of the Ancient Order of Hibernians, they march in the St. Patrick's Day parade in New York City every day. She was every St. Patrick's Day. She was the co-founder of that, and she was a rock for me because she never gave up ever, and that was something for me that really kind of no matter how difficult things got, if she had a specific goal in mind, she would not quit, and she would adapt. If something failed, she would try something different with the same goal in mind. And that she was really kind of the bedrock for, that kind of need to be persistent and need to have goals, and then to do what you have to get those goals accomplished.
So, let me ask you this. If you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, whether it's in your field or just in general, that you could ask some questions, hang out with, see how they roll, that may benefit you on your path in life, who would that be?
Wow, that's a great question. That really is a good question. Um, Someone who comes to mind. That's a really, really good question. Um, One person who I follow a lot, and I like kind of their mindset is I'd love to have a conversation with like a Jocko Willink, or even I know it's going to sound crazy, but even like an Elon Musk, someone who is multifaceted, very driven, um, reads what their resources are very well, and capitalizes on opportunities. I'd love to be able to. To be honest, I'd probably be Elon Musk. Just to be Jocko Willink is great as well, but just to be able to pick their brain on how they strategize and how they adapt and change to what's in front of them, and what steps they typically take on a daily basis to help ensure that they succeed in what they're attempting to accomplish.
So talk to me a little bit about how you balance all of these things that you do. You got a lot going on. Um, how do you balance your professional life being at the top of your game, but also you have to evolve as a human being yourself? What is that motivation every day for you to wake up to be the best version of you?
Yeah, so I have an incredible wife. She's so supportive, and she's the foundation of really my world. And she provides that kind of foundation and stability that allows me to be able to balance both a full time job while developing different new kind of work path, not work paths, not like I'm leaving my job or anything, but just kind of a new path I'm taking with being an author and things like that. So, I get up every morning and I really think about, I really, every morning I kind of try to think about what the day is kind of going to envision to be like ahead. And then I take steps to ensure that, I can meet those goals. I'm kind of old school. Like when I get to work every day, this is going to sound really old school, especially for some younger folks, because I don't use a computer for this, but I literally have a list, daily list every day. And when I get into work, it could be 10 things, it could be 30 things. And how I focus my day is, and it really helps to be able to focus the mind is, I go down that list and my mindset is I have to accomplish every one of these items. And if for some reason, from a business standpoint, if something has happened that has taken me off path because I have to deal with other issues, whatever I haven't accomplished that day automatically goes to the top of the list my next day. So that's kind of how I set up my day in terms from a business standpoint to be able to be successful. From a personal standpoint, I take some time for myself every day, and I kind of set aside at least a half an hour a day, whether I'm working on a book, books that I have, or responding to reaching back out to correspondences, or just taking some time to think about what my next project may be. I map out that time and I dedicate myself to doing that every day, and it helps me stabilize and keep focused and keep consistency, because with consistency usually comes success.
So when you look back on your life, a lot of what we do that turns into wonderful things involves a level of risk. When you look back on your life, what's the biggest risk that you've ever taken?
Wow. Um, I think when my wife and I and my family, we originally, you might be able to tell, I have a Brooklyn accent. We're originally from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
We came down to Virginia. That was a major, major shift. We moved my family. We moved, several states away to a new environment with new surroundings. Even though I was with the same company, it was a new task within that company, and that was a risk because it could have failed. We were working with an account. In business anything can happen, and luckily it was very successful. But that was a big risk for both myself and my family, and it turned out wonderfully for myself and my wife and my children.
My dad's from Brooklyn. He was born in Brooklyn and raised in Long Island. They moved up to Massapequa.
Oh, no kid. Yeah, I moved out to Levittown for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
What's weird? The other night, my wife got me tickets to see Seinfeld for Christmas,
Yeah.
and we caught him in Kansas City to a packed house. It was our big arena downtown. Jim Gaffigan opened for him, and when we were leaving, there was a woman in front of me that kept saying Massapequa, and I was like, "Why are you saying that? What's going on?" And she was like, "That's where Jerry Seinfeld's from." And
Oh, really?
yeah, isn't that weird? I thought he was from Jersey, or he was just in the Bronx, somewhere else. But
Yeah, I never did that.
he grew up there, and she was like, she knew people that knew him when he was a teenager, and he would always be writing jokes and testing them out. So
Wow.
it all worked out for him.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah,
great.
it's pretty cool. So let me ask you this. Of everything that you've done in your life up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
My family.
Yeah.
Bottom line, I have absolutely two wonderful daughters. Obviously my wife, and I have some absolutely fantastic grandchildren. And even though I'm not responsible for all of that specifically, that's my greatest. That's what I'm proudest of. We just have I'm very proud of my family. They've all been very successful at what they do. My grandkids are just wonderful, and everyone's happy and well. So that's my greatest joy.
So let me ask you this. If you got a dream tonight, ran into a 18-year-old version of you, and you can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've accumulated, what advice would you give your younger self?
Great question. So I would think, two things. Actually, it might be three things. One is to be kind to yourself. And secondly, to enjoy the journey. I think for a lot of people, and it was for me, your mind can be your best friend, or it could be your worst enemy. So, a lot of all through life, and I think most people experience this. You have challenges about, whether you're going to, there's fear of failure, which can make you hesitate. There's, you don't really kind of put yourself out there sometimes. You lack confidence a little bit to try something new. And I would say to my younger self, one, be kind to yourself, enjoy the journey, and, explore your strengths and your weaknesses, because that's how you grow. And, for me, so many people are afraid of failure. One of the things that I learned relatively early in life, and as I've grown older, just continues to prove itself, is, if you fail at something, but you'll learn something from that failure, and you could adjust your path or what you're doing because of that failure, and it makes you stronger, it's not a failure. It's actually a win. So I think it really depends on how you approach your mindset about the circumstances that you're in and what you're trying. So I think just those really three things: be kind to yourself, be kind to I would say be kind to yourself, enjoy the journey, and be mindful of what you're thinking about, because it could be powerful. It could be powerful either negatively or positively.
So at the end of the day, Gene, everyone has a perception of you in all these circles and bubbles in your life, family, friends, everyone in your work world, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Wow. That's great questions today. So I would think, someone who's trying, I would think that, I try my best every day. I try to be a good person. I try to be kind to people. I think, really perception of myself as someone who's striving to be better every day. And that doesn't mean specifically, to accomplish something, specific, but just both in every area of life, just to be a little bit better, and that's how I kind of perceive myself.
So, Gene, if anyone wants to get your books, they want to reach out, they're curious, they want to know more about you and your world, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, thank you. So the books can be found on Amazon. And if you just type in books by Gene Burke, my books will populate up. And we also have a website. It's thirdmonkeypro.com. And that's our website where we have some additional information.
Perfect. Gene, this has been wonderful, man. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's been an absolute pleasure being on your show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.